like XR creators and like spatial creators are like some of my favorite people to be around. So what I like is like the always making, doing, building, exploring, and where it shows up as an innovative person, I think is an interesting story.
Yeah, then we'll do just fine. And I love that you're a theater nerd and also an XR nerd because I am too.
Right? If you've met people in spatial computers, they're of a similar
They are my favorite. I'm
heck yes.
absolutely obsessed with this community. I love XR.
Hello and welcome to the Glow Up. I'm Nathan C. And today I'm talking with Christina Heller, executive producer at Meta Reality Labs Entertainment and producer and writer of the upcoming indie film Unexpected Treasures. Christina, it is so great to talk with you today.
Thank you, Nathan.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. Can you introduce yourself and some of the work that you do in innovation, technology, and maybe even storytelling?
I have been a multimedia producer and storyteller since college. I feel like at this point, I've probably produced in almost every medium one can create in. And the ones that I haven't had a chance to yet, I still want to. I just love trying new methods of content creation, storytelling. And the way that most people know me is as a XR innovator and producer, which I imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you know what XR is. But in case you don't, it's the catch-all term for virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. I have been working happily in this space for 11 years now and am currently an EP at Meta, but before this launched and led two startups, one called VR Playhouse and one called Meta Stage. Over the past 2 years, I produced and wrote an indie feature film called Unexpected Treasures with my partner, who co-wrote it and directed it. And we are excited to be getting that out into the world this fall.
So somebody who's very interested in like spatial computing as a communications and storytelling medium, somebody who's telling stories, building entertainment experiences at one of the largest computing companies in the world right now. I'm curious, how did you get here? What started this passion for creating, telling stories, and exploring the edges of media?
I think that my desire to create and is just innate. I think I have to be creating things all the time to feel satisfied. I live in Joshua Tree now, and so I feel like I can just lean into desert cliches, but I love the tarot. And when you see Unexpected Treasures, you'll see there's a little tarot scene in it. My tarot card is the Empress, and the Empress just wants to create all the time. And that's how I feel. It is my joy. When I was in my 20s, I was interested in nonfiction storytelling, journalism, documentary filmmaking, had the pleasure of making 2 feature documentaries in my 20s, along with other short documentaries for Current TV, if anyone remembers that era. And I became interested about the intersection of technology and media. And it was just at that time when I had the chance to try the DK1 at Sundance New Frontiers. And so I had this question looming, like, where is the intersection of media and technology? And then tried the DK1 and was like, oh, there it is. Along with some of my creative collaborators at the time, we decided to start a company called VR Playhouse, which specialized in content creation for these headsets, which was very early days. And we weren't even really aware of just how early days we were at that point in 2014. But it kicked off what has now been an over decade-long passion with virtual reality, the promise of it, what it can do. And then now working on the film, it's been the passion project on the side that's a chance to go back to, in some ways, a more simple medium. We call them flatty. Oh, I went back and I had the fun of making a flatty with some of my friends that are also in that space. I just know that I'm happiest when I'm building and creating and innovating.
if a two-dimensional screen-based movie is a flatty, does that make spatial movies like fatties or spacey? Like, do
Oh,
have
I guess it's more just 3D. It's 3D, it's spatial. So I don't know if we call it a fatty, but
yeah.
but I do think that the term flatty is really funny. And so when I'm talking to my VR friend, they're like, "Oh, you're making a regular film or a VR film?" I'm like, "I'm making a flatty."
So I appreciate one, you called out DK1, and I think if you go back and listen through the 45 or so episodes from this season, DK1 is going to be one of the most regularly occurring keywords. And it's such an interesting time for people getting excited about spatial computing, first really mainstream feeling VR headsets. I'm curious, 11 years of hype cycles and ups and downs, everybody defining the metaverse, maybe running away from the metaverse, running to AI. There's been a lot of disruption. And I joke that every year it feels like the year something's going to really grow. So, how do you, over so many hype cycles, stay focused, stay engaged, and maybe more importantly, like, how do you, when something is always in the future and always now, how do you think about delivering value with an emerging technology or it's not perfect? And that's 5 questions.
Yeah.
Pick your fate.
I've certainly, like many in this industry, ridden the roller coaster of hype cycles and troughs of disillusionment, which does set me up well to be entering the film industry at this particular time in history as well. I feel like the film industry is in their own trough of disillusionment at the moment. And it's funny because I've been there so many times with VR that I'm like, oh, this feels familiar and actually not scary. Usually that's a time of change, a time of transformation. And what I'll say for VR and MR is that despite the hype cycles, if you were a builder in this space, you couldn't help but notice how much progress was being made the whole time. If you can see the video right now, I have one arm steadily climbing when it comes to improvements in the software, better headsets, more innovative content experiences, social VR. It's like this whole time it's been steadily climbing and getting better and more powerful, while the market or the interest around it in terms of money has been going up and down, while us builders were slowly improving the systems. Given me excitement and hope is that when I look at the MetaQuest 3 and I compare it to the DK1, it is a miracle device and it can do so much that headset 10 years ago couldn't do. I remember lugging a DK2 and a desktop computer into Jason Rubin's office in 2015 to try to pitch him a VR travel series. And now, I can pop into my headset and world surf with friends across the country. I can work out with them. We can go see a concert. So for me, I just see it getting better and better. I know how VR can actually help and improve people's day-to-day life experiences too. And that's what I'm always focused on. Like, what about VR can make customers or fans' life better? So it's not about escapism, it's about aiding and providing a superpower to people in their real life.
Thank you for that. This idea that the troughs are when change is happening, and that is a good time for builders, is a very smart point that you only would know through experience. So thank you. I know that working for a big 5 tech company, describing the kinds of things that you do can sometimes be a little challenging. I'm curious though, can you give us a little bit of an insight into the kinds of stories, the kinds of connection and these values that you're trying to foster, how that shows up in your work at Meta?
I'll preface this by saying that I'm not on this podcast as an official representative of Meta, but I do happen to work there and really love it. I have had the chance to work on VR fitness and wellness apps for the last couple of years. I had the pleasure of working with FitXR, which was an exercise app that people could do from their homes. People were finding immense value from this app, losing weight, getting in shape, gaining confidence, gaining community. And I also loved it too. Like I would pop in between Zoom meetings and work out a bit. It was a lot of fun. And then I also worked with Tripp, the meditation app. Really cool AI integrations that allow you to anchor and focus your frazzled monkey mind into a meditative lens using their technologies. And I loved working with Tripp. And again, if you look at the reviews of people who have integrated it on a day-to-day basis, it has impacted and touched millions of lives around the world. Now I'm working on the metaverse music team. So you can get front row seats at a concert through your headset and check out either your favorite artist on a tour you weren't able to make, or check out an artist you would have never thought to attend a concert of. And maybe now you're interested and incentivized to go check them out in real life. For me, it's always anchored in the real person and how this technology can broaden their world or make them happier and healthier.
So, in just the small list that you shared of the things that you've done at Meta, I've been impacted personally by almost every single one of them. Tripp was the only tool that I could use to meditate consistently. And I no longer use the VR app. But when I first started, I needed the VR app because putting the headset on and being free of additional distractions was really important. And it was actually the measurement and the quantification that showed me that like, every time you go through a session, it asks how you feel before and after. And I was noticing that I was always making progress. And I was like, oh, if this helps me regularly, maybe like you're in between meetings, maybe if I'm feeling a little agitated or overstimulated, Tripp could help me get to where I wanted. And that unlocked the power of meditation for me. I love being able to go to concerts in headset because I can stay up on things. I can go see the hottest acts. I can be front stage. There was a K-pop band that I was like in a small recording studio with. It was just so upfront and personal. But the thing I really have to thank you for is I love the new Charlie XCX album. The Sweat Tour seemed like it was so fun, but they were coming through Portland on a Tuesday night, and I can't go to the club on a Tuesday anymore. But that VR concert gave me the ability to watch in my house, like at my dinner table in my pajamas. I got to see all of that artistry, all of that performance, but it was on my terms in a way that lowered so many barriers for me to have a really good time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a really successful VR concert. And kudos to my teammates that put that together. I think sometimes people think that virtual reality is meant to take us away from our humanity. But here, all we're doing is bringing you closer to incredible performers and their artistry and getting to appreciate live music in this new way. And for me, that's just such a net positive.
Thank you. Amazing. I have to know more. As somebody who's been producing in all sorts of mediums, all sorts of dimensions, tell me a little bit more about the inspiration to produce a flatty, especially right in a time where traditional media is having its own trough. And also do share as much or as little as you're able to get us enticed.
I have to give credit where credit's due. My life partner, John Paul Ungaretti, who goes by JP Ungaretti, who's the director of Unexpected Treasures, he has been working in the industry for over 15 years and has always wanted to make his feature film. And so after the strike, which was very challenging for everybody who works in entertainment, there was this feeling of we're not getting any younger. You got to do the things in life that you want to do. If your soul is calling you to do something, I know it sounds maybe simplistic to be like, just do it, because but what about this? What about this? Of course, there's a lot of things that need to come into place sometimes to make these dreams come to reality. But I think there's nothing sadder than a song unsung. And so I think we looked at each other and we thought, you know what? Let's do it. And let's be practical about it. We'll write a script that is shot that is placed and filmed entirely in the Joshua Tree area, because that's where we live. That's where we'll have community support and resources. It's also, they say, write what you know. So this is our day-to-day life. And Joshua Tree, this area, is rich with interesting stories. Ours is an alien story. So it's a cute, like 90-minute popcorn flick about an alien who meets a girl and she has to help him escape a bounty hunter that's chasing him. We rooted this story in the real alien folklore of the area. So if you start to dig into the past of UFO history in Joshua Tree, it's a fascinating onion to keep pulling the layers of. There was a man named George Van Tassel who hosted some of the biggest UFO conventions of his day in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They were called the Giant Rock Spacecraft Conventions. And 30,000 people would show up at Giant Rock in Landers, California, to hear his stories of being contacted by visitors from Venus. So our film is totally rooted in that history, and our leading alien is a Venusian who knew George Van Tassel. And so it's this cheeky, like, wink. We started writing the script with the idea that we're just going to write a script. I think sometimes if you think about the end goal, where you are going to end up, it can feel so big that you won't even want to get started. So at that point, the goal was just, hey, let's try to write the best script we can. And then once we finished the script and we showed it to a few people, they liked it. They thought, oh, this is really cute. Then we did a table read on Zoom. So it really was just this one step at a time process. But what happened for me is that the further we got, the stronger my desire to make it became. It went from, oh, we're just making a script, to being like, now I really want to shoot this thing. How can we shoot it? So it just became this snowball that continued. And this is how all of my endeavors begin, because once you're halfway in, you realize, oh my gosh, what have I done? This is so big. This is so hard. This is so expensive. But at that point, there's no way out but through. You're already in too deep. And so that has been the story of all my endeavors. I go in with this blend of confidence and naivete, which is key to even beginning. And then I get so far in that to turn back is inconceivable. And so you just have to keep moving forward one step in front of the other until you finish or whatever.
I love it. I think you're selling yourself short, though, right? If you've started several companies, if you're producing experiences for a company as large as you are, I suspect that naivete at this point is maybe more being okay about unknowns rather than being unaware of the unknown.
Nathan, I will say, you're right. I am very comfortable diving into a space that I'm not fully an expert in yet, knowing that by doing it, I will become an expert. But I will also say that midway through production, I thought, oh my gosh, I have wildly underestimated how hard this is. A film production with all of its moving pieces, going through SAG, for instance, and having to follow all of their rules and restrictions and paperwork. I will say that making this film, especially in the production, was harder and more intense than I had anticipated. And halfway through, I did have that feeling of, oh, wow, I was very naive to what it takes to make a feature film. 2 or 3 weeks before the film we were going to start shooting, one of my executive producers, Ginny Galloway, asked me who the assistant director on the shoot was going to be. And I said, I'm going to do it. And she said, no, you're not. You need a real assistant director. And again, because I think I can do everything. How hard could it be? I can do it. So she said, trust me, Christina, you need a real AD on set. And I'm at least smart enough to listen to my executive producers. And we found a great AD to join us at the somewhat last minute. And then once we got into the filming, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought I was going to be the AD on this. If you knew how challenging or how hard something it truly is, you might be like, I'm just going to hang on my couch. I'm just going to watch movies, not make them. But then you get through it. And obviously, it was the highlight of my year. Nothing compared to that production and that shoot. And it will probably be one of the things I'm most proud of when I look back.
I love this reminder, right? Whether you are a screenwriter or a founder, that asking for help with the things that are not your core strength can be liberating and inspiring and helps you focus on where you're strong. So I love that lesson. Taking good advice is harder than it sounds sometimes, especially when you have a really strong internal image of what a thing is or how it should be. This interesting theme that's emerging of can't help but be creative, can't help but explore the boundaries and tell the stories and learn. And building this pattern of learning and growing and always insatiable curiosity. Other than the doing and the making things, right? Because as a creator, that feels really great. And it's always lovely to see people playing in your apps and appreciating the partnerships that you've built. How do you think about the impact of the work that you do? Maybe as a creative, it's like, how does it drive you and nourish you while you're doing all of this hard work in the lead up? I mean, nobody's seen the film yet and you're still busting your butt. So how do you measure the impact and stay engaged through these long and sometimes arduous processes?
I tend to think about impact on both the micro and macro level. So for me, it's not about the impact of just the work or the product on the people who engage with it. It's also on the experience we had making it. The journey along the way, honestly, I know how much impact the things I've created have or haven't had on the world. To be honest, I did production services for many years. We did a lot of advertising, marketing installations where you would get some data at the end of it, but you weren't there with the end consumer to necessarily see the smiles or see how they reacted. I always feel like my most impactful work is in the future, but I do know that what I can control is the set or the studio or the calls, Zoom calls I had leading up to the final project. And I always try to put as much emphasis on good vibes, collaboration, appreciation, fun as I can throughout the whole process, because that is part of the experience and may end up being where the impact is most felt, because we're all working on these things together and we are all real people. And at the end of our life, we're going to look back on these things we did together and tell stories about it and reflect. It's just where I put a lot of my emphasis on impact, is like, in this call today, how can we uplift each other? How can we support each other and make it a fun experience? And that's not to say that there aren't challenges. They do come. How can you respect people through the challenging times and then be grateful for their effort when you've successfully untangled the mess, and give them their credit and their flowers, having the resilience to get through those tough times? So that's what I tend to focus on. Now with this film, there's a more tangible impact because it is a story that's going to go out into the world. And I know that the film won't be for everyone. Like, I know this. Like, some people are going to watch it and they're going to roll their eyes. But I do hope that I do feel in my core that there's people who will really appreciate the messages of community and connection and friendship that this movie is emphasizing. And my hope is that it can make an impact on the people it's meant to find. And we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I'm so enamored with your response. Thank you. Diving in there. There's this thing that really stuck out to me, and I'm trying to do it justice. We don't know what the future holds, right? Like, even while we have these big 5, 10, 50 year, I've talked to Fortune 100 companies who have 500-year vision, right? We're a 200-year-old company. Let's make the next 200 years, like outrageous long-term goals. But at the end of the day, we are people trying to do our best. And if the future is uncertain, then why not enjoy the journey? Don't delay. I honestly believe um, creates the kind of culture where you talk about what's important. You can make space to prioritize like real action. There's this misconception that work has to feel hard and painful. If you're not hustling, it's not good work. And in a creative and a strategic field, right? Like, I know that my work is based in like me being rested. I know that like physiologically, you cannot do strategic and creative things if you're in fight or flight. And so like this mentality, there's this hustle mentality that says if you're not just like at 120%, you're failing. And what I have seen, and what it seems like you have adopted for yourself, the idea that actually enjoying the journey, being curious about it, being open to it is what like unlocks both the quality work and lets us
The hustle,
uh
like enjoying the hustle, which I will say I feel very lucky that I genuinely love my work because I imagine if I was hustling in a sector or doing work that I didn't love, then that hustle wouldn't feel as good. But I tell people, I'm like, I love my work. I love it. It is a hustle. Like it is a lot of work, but personally find a lot of joy in the process of doing that work because I like what we're doing. I like who I'm doing it with. We talked about this briefly in the pre-interview. I love the XR community. I had briefly stepped into the world of documentary filmmaking and journalism and broadcast television in my 20s, and I never felt like I had found the people who I wanted to spend 8 to 10 hours every day working with until I got to XR. And I was like, oh, when I'm on Zoom calls with these people, again, it doesn't feel like work. I love these people. And so, yes, it is a hustle, but I love the hustle. And that's just something I'm always grateful for every day. But I know also makes me sound like just like such a kiss ass. This is what it is.
when you are a leader of teams, right? Your job is to help people maintain focus. It is to help them understand the direction, and it is to inspire the best work out of those people. And maybe this relates, especially like founder CEOs get stuck in kind of the duality of I have to build everything to start, right? And moving into empowering teams and like letting go and it being more about the journey and like setting the end point and like pushing the team to get there. But for me, shows that you're in that higher leadership, making things happen on a vision level rather than necessarily fighting for all of that win on your own team. You've called out your teams like 5 different times.
Yeah, it is. These are all incredibly collaborative mediums. Okay. VR, film, probably some of the most collaborative mediums on earth. So you have to call out your team because you know, as well as anybody, how many humans spent their life energy to help make this thing come into fruition. So it really is like, it is a team. And I am grateful for everybody that spent their time and energy to unlimited resources and budget. It's not like we had super deep pockets on this movie or ever in VR. Like VR never had a lot of funding either. So I feel like I've always worked in these mediums where it's super collaborative. People have a lot of heart, but we don't always have millions and millions of dollars to pull off what we're trying to do. So I do call out my teams because they are there and you couldn't do
Everybody needs XR creatives, right?
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
Everybody. Yes, I love this. You're teeing up the next question perfectly. So, thinking about all of these big goals, big dreams, and the real state of the world, the show is called The Glow Up, and I'd love to learn about what sort of glow up you're working on. Is there a rebirth or a transformation or some big goals that you have for unexpected treasures that you're working on this year?
By the time this podcast airs, we have already premiered the film at Comic-Con, which is very exciting. My dream is to get as many eyes on the film as possible so that it can find the community where it can make its impact. And I want the barrier to entry on this to be as low as possible. I really want people to see the film so that the people who like it and maybe are interested in seeing this story continue in some fashion find it and can support it. So that's my big dream for the next 6 months, is get Unexpected Treasures out into the world and hopefully find some people that like it.
Amazing. Premiering a movie at Comic-Con and moving into general distribution across streaming platform. Heck yeah. Love it.
Yes.
Goodness, we are breezing through these questions. So on every Glow Up episode, we do make time for a community spotlight. I'm curious, is there an organization, a group, a nonprofit, or otherwise that's doing great work that you think could use a little extra attention or a shout out?
I just spoke to JP about this yesterday. We are going to donate a portion of proceeds from the film to the local Joshua Tree no-kill animal shelters. You'll see in the film that my dog, Rosie, is prominently featured in the film. There's also another dog named Polly who's in the film. They're both rescues. We love dogs. And so we thought it was only right that a portion of proceeds go to help these great organizations that help animals. So I'll call out all of the no-kill shelters of the world and encourage people when they can to adopt, not shop. Dogs are the best, and they all deserve a happy, healthy home.
I love it. My dog is 6 feet away from me napping. So just in wrapping up with all of these goals and all of these plans and endeavors, is there anything that you're currently looking for help with or connections around, whether it's networking, distribution support, and how can folks get to know you more online?
That's a great question, Nathan. I probably need help with everything. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or follow Unexpected Treasures on Instagram or Facebook. I welcome any advice from people who have been in my shoes a bit longer than I have in this space, and am very inspired by other filmmakers and people who are trying to achieve big dreams in a challenging landscape. Yeah, I probably need a lot of help, but at this point, I can't think of anything specific.
Amazing. This has been just an outstanding treat. Christina Heller, executive producer for Meta Reality Labs Entertainment, a serial entrepreneur, a leader of delightful teams moving through complicated process, and even an indie movie screenwriter, producer, and distributor, doing so many things to tell stories, explore the possibilities of media, and always hang around spatial creators. Thank you for joining us on the Glow Up today. It has been such a treat.
Thank you for having me. It's been a long time since I've done a podcast, so this was a lot of fun, and I couldn't have asked for a nicer host. So I appreciate
Off.
being here so much.
I love it.